So on that note, please help me welcome not just our colleague, but our speaker today, Dr. Stiving. Thank you, sir.
I've probably been in pricing since I was 12 years old. I remember going to the grocery store with my mom and seeing prices that ended in 9, 69, 99. And I always wondered, why do companies do that? Do they think we're stupid? We know 99 is the same thing as $1. 21 years later, I found myself at UC Berkeley in a doctoral program, and I get to play with scanner panel data. This is the data that Nielsen and grocery stores collect when you use your loyalty cards. So we know so much about you when you go to the grocery store. It's incredible. And I got to use tuna fish and yogurt. I knew so much about tuna fish purchases. Wow. But I got to test whether this 9-cent thing works or not. And it turns out it really does. I made it my entire dissertation on why 99 cents works. I became so enamored with this concept of how do people use prices to make decisions. For the next 25 years, that's all I focused on, is how do people use price when they decide what they want to buy. And there are really two big sides to the story. One side is the side that I'll call it's fun. It's the 99 cents side. There's a whole field called behavioral economics on how is it that people make irrational decisions. There's a book by Dan Ariely called Predictably Irrational, probably the single most popular book on behavioral economics, and it's a lot of fun. You know, we make really bad decisions sometimes, and we can cause you to make really bad decisions. Those are fun, they're interesting, but they're not that powerful. Believe it or not, the real power in pricing, the real power in business comes from understanding how our buyers value our products. How do our buyers value the things that we do? And so we'll start with a rule, maybe. A quick impactful insight, pricing captures value. If you think about your business, everything your company does, everything your business is designed to do is to create value. You design products, you design messages, you try to figure out what your customers really need and want to hear. You're delivering value. And the only way you capture that is through the price that we set. That's what we're going to focus on today. As we go through today, the 90 minutes I get to share with you, we're going to learn 3 huge pricing lessons that every one of you can take a piece of this and say, how do I apply this to my business? I'm a little worried because I'm in here talking to a bunch of keynoters, and I'm not going to talk about keynotes the whole time by any means. We'll try to bring it back to that once in a while. But most of you are consultants, or you're selling training, or you're selling products. So pricing applies to way more than just keynotes. And that's what we'll talk about as we go through the day today. When I teach, the first thing we ever have to learn is this rule. The single most profitable pricing decision any company can ever make is to adopt value-based pricing. Value-based pricing is a really simple concept to understand. It means charge what your customers are willing to pay. Super easy to understand. Really hard to do. It's impossible, in fact. If I pointed out any one of your customers, you couldn't tell me how much that customer is willing to pay. In fact, if I asked you how much are you willing to pay for something, you don't even know the answer to that question. How would I be able to figure that out? So what we want to do is take this on as an attitude, as a goal. The way we do pricing is always thinking about our customers, thinking about our buyers. How are they thinking? And can we get closer and closer to what it is that they're willing to pay? Every day we can make tweaks to our products, our pricing, find ways to deliver more value so we can capture more value. But it's always about thinking about our customers. So it's important to note value is not based on your costs. This is a misnomer. So many of us believe this is true. If my costs went up, I have to raise my prices. And maybe that's true for some reasons and we could justify it. But in 1989, I was a salesperson driving through the Silicon Valley. I'm selling automatic test equipment to the semiconductor company industry. And I heard the story on the radio that changed my life. It changed the way I think about pricing. You guys have all heard the company Intel. So Intel makes a 486DX processor. This is the very first dual core processor ever manufactured. It is expensive. It is awesome. It's like having two processors at once. AMD, who competes with Intel, came out with a single core version of that 486. Much lower price. So it was pin compatible, worked the same, but didn't have two processors. Intel's starting to lose business. They say, hey, we better come out with a single core version. So they come out with the 486SX, single core, much lower price. Now this story makes sense, right? There's nothing unusual about it until you learn how they build an SX. Turns out they start by building a DX, and then they take another manufacturing step to disable the coprocessor. It cost them more money to make a DX than it did to make an SX. I'm sorry, it cost them more to make an SX than it did to make a DX. And yet they sold it at a much lower price. The cost of manufacturing something, the cost of building something has nothing to do with the value our customers perceive. And in 99% of the cases, it has nothing to do with the price we're going to charge. Okay, quick quiz for you guys. We're going to go through an example. Let's assume we're going to sell a product, and this product costs us $20. In fact, let's make it retail so it's easy. We're going to buy something, it costs $20 to buy it. I'm going to turn around and resell it to somebody, right? So I go out to my market, I find out this guy, he's willing to pay me $100. What do you think I should charge for this product? I'm okay. I would have gone for 100, but I'm okay with 99, right? Right. So $100, that's what they're willing to pay. I'm going to charge $100. Here's a question for you. What if it cost me $50 and he's willing to pay 100? How much should I charge? 99. We're sticking with 99. I'm okay with that, right? What if it costs 75? Let's stick with the 99 or 100. Well, wait. What if it costs me $150 and my customer is willing to pay 100? Walk away, get a new customer. This is not a business we want to be in. But here's the point, costs matter, right? You'll never hear me say costs don't matter. They don't matter to the price that we set. They matter to what business do we want to be in. They matter to, is this a deal I want to accept? So I do care about costs, just not as we set prices. And so we talk about how much is a customer willing to pay us. Our customers almost always make two different decisions. The first decision is, will I buy something in this product category? After they've said yes to the will I decision, then they go on and say, okay, which one am I going to go buy? Most of the time they go on to say, okay, which one am I going to go buy? Dr. Jeff, I just got asked the question, did you consider more, by the way, what car did you buy? Okay, we'll just call it a Lexus, it's fine. Did you consider any other ones? Did you go out and look and shop for cars? Yeah, okay. So he said, Jeff said, look, I've hit my midlife crisis. I want a really, I want a really expensive, fast car. So let me go shop for a bunch of different vehicles and which one's going to meet my needs the best. Right? But how about the rest of you? Stormy, are you in the market for a new car right now? So you're not in the market. Okay, so he's not saying yes to will I. So he's not out shopping for a new car. If I were selling cars and I'm trying to sell one to Stormy, I better be talking about why you need a new car. Right? What's the value of switching whatever the vehicle is you have today? And if you're thinking about yourself, what would it take for you to say, yeah, I need to go buy a new car? That's the will I decision. That's the information that someone needs when they're making a will I decision. After they've said yes to will I, then they go on and say, okay, now which one am I going to go buy? Now, this is a really, really important concept. And we'll see why for several different reasons. First reason is when people are making a will I decision, price is not driving that decision. Something else is driving that decision. If we can recognize that people are in a will I decision, we don't need to focus so much on the price. In fact, sometimes there are products where people only make a will I decision. Who's been bungee jumping? Guy has. Okay, we're gonna go. My wife has because I was there. But Guy, we're gonna go with you. Guy, where did you go? You're gonna ruin my story. I can tell that already. But that's okay. We'll go with it. So when you first time you went, how much was it? Do you remember? $100. First time you went, did you say to yourself, gee, I could go here, or I could wait and go somewhere else. Let me shop around where I want to go bungee jumping. Nope, it was just here, or I'm not going to do it, or I'm not going to do it. Yeah. So he essentially made a will I decision, right? Am I going to go do it or not? Very first time, we're going back to the first time now, right? $100. Would you go on if it was 125? 150? 200? Probably. Okay. Notice that price wasn't driving that decision. He didn't look at competitive alternatives. He wasn't shopping around. He was saying, am I going to do this or not do this? He said, here's the price, and the price they charged turned out to be way less than what he was actually willing to pay. So the rest of us, we're all really good friends of Guy's. We show up on the day that he's going to go bungee jumping for the very first time. We are right there with him. We're giving him emotional support. It's $100. Who's actually going to jump with him? Who's spending their $100 to jump with him? Okay, so we got a few takers. We got a few takers. You're going to stand and clap? Okay. Okay, so for those of us who are not going to jump, I would have, but Darren, since you spoke up for me, help me out, would you? Would you have gone for 75? 50.
It's a won't decision.
It's a won't tie decision? Yeah, okay. Okay. So right, exactly. The key is price isn't driving the decision. Something else is driving that decision. What we want to be able to do is understand when our buyers are making will I decisions and when our buyers are making which one decisions. There are products and there are situations where our buyers are only making a will I decision. They never go on to make a which one decision. An easy way to think about that is they never considered a competitive alternative. They just said, I need to buy from you. Here are two great examples of this. Popcorn at the movie theater. You walk into the movies, you chose your movie because of where the theater is or what time it's showing or what the movie is. And after you walk in, you say, am I going to take out a mortgage today to buy popcorn or not? Right? But the thing is, you didn't get to choose someplace else to get popcorn. Do you know you can get free popcorn at Ace Hardware? It's free. Yes. Yeah, okay. It's free. But the key here is when people buy after only making a will I decision, they weren't price sensitive. Price didn't drive that decision. So here's some free money for you. If you know that a buyer, you have a product where buyers are only making will I decisions, if you raise the price 10% today, it won't change your demand. If they raise the price of popcorn 10%, does that change whether or not you buy popcorn at the theater? Absolutely not. If they On the other hand, most of the time, people are making which one decisions. I like to say the vast majority of our purchases, of our customers, they're deciding, do I want you or someone else? Do I want this product or something else? I'm going to go shop around. I want the best bang for the buck. I want the best deal I can get. And so as a quick example, you're going to go to a store, you got to buy a can of green beans. You can either buy Del Monte green beans, or you can buy Safeway Kitchens green beans. Don't care which one. Who's buying Del Monte? Make a decision. Who's buying Del Monte? Oh, wait. I got to give you more information. Del Monte costs $1.69. Safeway Kitchens is only $1.49. Okay, who's going with Del Monte? We got probably half the room. Who's going with Safeway? All right. Del Monte. Why'd you go with Del Monte, Jeff? Name brand, right? Good expectations of higher quality possible, right? You trust it. Nice, nice. Anything else? Any other reasons why you would go with Del Monte? Yeah, I think that's a label thing. I think it might be in the other one too, but it's okay. I'm with you. What about the Safeway kitchens? Who went with Safeway, and tell me why? Patricia. Good reason. Good reason. We want to support our customers if we can. Absolutely right. Absolutely. But the key is you said you think it's pretty much the same bean, same factory, same can, different label, and that's possible. May or may not be true. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to read the labels and see what it says, right? And we're going to make a conscious decision on, is this a better one or the same thing, not the same thing? So in all honesty, I don't really care which one you chose. What I do care about is how you made the decision. And every one of you made the decision the exact same way. Every one of you said, Del Monte is 20 cents more. Is it worth it? Would I pay 20 cents more for Del Monte? And for some of you, the answer to that was yes. And for some of you, the answer to that was no. But this is exactly how your buyers are making decisions. If I'm going to choose between you and a competitor, I'm looking at the price difference and I'm saying, I'm assuming you're more expensive. I'm saying, are you worth it? But what's really fascinating, what I really love about the story is I actually don't care what's true. The only thing I care about is what you believe is true. What you believe is true is what made all the difference in the decision that you just made. When I coach companies on how to build products and how to think about this problem, I teach them, look, you want to build products that are better than your competitors' products. But if you're not marketing that, if you're not convincing and explaining and showing your buyers that your products truly are different, truly are better, then you won't get paid for it. Because they don't perceive the value. So the question is, are we building products that are better than our competitors? And are we marketing that? Are we communicating that to our customer base? Everything we've talked about so far and everything I'm ever going to talk about in pricing is how do we put ourselves in the shoes of our buyers? How do we think the way our buyers think? If I can understand whatever this guy's thinking, sitting on the edge of a building looking down, maybe I can start to understand how much he's willing to pay. What are the things he values? Forrester gives us a fantastic quote. He says, they say 62% of vendor salespeople are knowledgeable about their company and products. Now, by the way, Forrester's talking about B2B business. And I would say most of us in here are in B2B type businesses. Most of us sell our products to other businesses. We might talk to consumers and customers, but most of us are selling our products to businesses. And so Forrester says 62% of salespeople know the company, know the products. I would argue in this room, 100% of you know your company and know your products because it's you, right? You're selling yourself. You better know it. Forrester goes on to say only 22% understand buyers' business issues and where they can help. And now I might even argue that we're less than that 22% in this room, that we truly don't understand what it is that our buyers care about, what it is that they need. When we can translate what we do, what we offer, what we sell into problems that our customers truly have and the results they're expecting to achieve, then if we have business acumen, we can turn that into dollars of profit. We can explain to them or help them figure out how much more revenue are they going to make? How much cost are they going to save? Because we're in the business of selling to businesses. The only reason a business buys from us is because they want to make more money. How do we help them make more money? We want to think through this process then, and we're going to use something called the buyer's value map. When we think about the buyer's value map, we're going to put will I and which one on the bottom. We already talked a lot about will I and which one. We expect that most of our customers start out at the will I side. Do I have a problem? Am I going to spend money to solve this problem? Am I going to buy something in the product category? Then they move on to, yes, I want to. Now they're going to say, okay, which one am I going to go buy? Two things that are really valuable to us in this chart. Thing number one, will I and which one, different levels of price sensitivity. When people are on the left-hand side of this chart, price is not driving that decision. Price is not driving their thinking. When they move to the right-hand side of this chart, suddenly price becomes really important. Second thing that is super critical to understand about this, when people are making a will I decision, they're looking for different information than when they're making a which one decision. When people are making a will I decision, it's, is this a place I want to spend my budget? Do I have a problem that's worthy of me trying to spend my time, energy, resources to go solve this problem? It isn't about your product, the competitor's product. It's all about the problem. As soon as they move into the which one side, now our customers are thinking to themselves, oh, I could buy from you or I could buy from you. What's the difference? Which one do I get the bigger bang for the buck? They're looking for different information on two different sides of this chart. So look at the vertical axis. Let's take a look at a quote from Gartner. This one's pretty fabulous. 57% of a purchase decision is complete before a customer even calls a supplier. Now, I have no idea how they came up with 57%, but still, it's a reasonable thing. Think about the fact that you're going to go buy something new. You want to buy a new refrigerator. Your refrigerator broke. What's the first thing you're going to do? Marilyn, what's the first thing you're going to do? Reviews. We're going to go online and do a bunch of research and figure out what's available and what's good. And man, I don't want to talk to a salesperson. Are you crazy? Heck no. And so we all live this. We do this all the time. And your customers are doing this too. Your customer says, I need to buy something that looks like a speaker. Let me go look at what are all the alternatives out there, because the last thing they want to do is talk to a salesperson. They're doing a ton of research before they ever get to us. And so we fill out the chart. What this says to us is that they're going to start in that upper left-hand box. Do I have a problem? And they're going to do this without us being involved. They're going to do this without a salesperson being involved. What we're about to do is look at 3 different journeys that buyers can take through this map. Those 3 different journeys are going to be called analytical, relationship, and trust journeys. When we can recognize the journey that our buyer is going through, we can give them the information they need, and we can understand how price sensitive they're going to be. And so let's start with one called the analytical journey. The analytical journey is the one that we all think is probably what's really happening. And most of the time it might be what's happening. That's where someone says to themselves, hey, am I going to buy a new product in this category? Yes. Let me go online. So without salespeople helping, let me go online and do a bunch of research on which product I really want. Jeffrey, did you go online and research a bunch of cars before you bought your car? Yeah. Before you ever walked into a dealership, you had done a ton of research. This is what most of us think is going on in our marketplace. And a lot of times it is, there's no doubt. When our buyers are going through this process, they tend to be more price sensitive. In fact, this is the most price sensitive buyer we'll find. When a buyer walks into you and says, hey, I want to hire a speaker. How are you different than these other speakers? You already know they're being price sensitive because they walked in the door saying, hey, I'm looking at all these different people. You're up against these people. And this is true with any of our products. On the other hand, there's another type of journey which is much better. A much better journey is someone doing what's called a relationship journey. Now imagine that, imagine you just became a brand new realtor. And as a brand new realtor, you say, I've got this beater of a car. I can't take people around and show them houses in my beater car. I really need to get a new car. So you've come up with a reason. I need a new car so I can take people out. And instead of doing a bunch of research, you just go to your mentor, your realtor mentor, and you say, I need a new car. What do you suggest? And they say, oh, you should go talk to Bob at Lexus. Bob at Lexus, he'll take good care of you. Go check him out. And so you go to the Lexus dealer, you go talk to Bob. Bob's helping you understand. Notice that we're over here in the will I side, right? Bob's helping you understand what's the value to a realtor of having an amazing car that you can show off and people will trust you and love you when you're driving them around. You demonstrate that you're successful. Bob's talking to you about why you really want to buy a car. Maybe Bob's talking about a little bit about how my Lexus is better, but he's not doing it by mentioning anybody else. He's just saying, hey, these are the things that we do that are amazing. And then the shopper says, thank you so much, Bob. I really appreciate it. I feel like I need to go shop around. They go to some other dealerships, but guess what? Bob actually has the leg up here. Bob got to help set the traps. Bob got to say, here's what you're really looking for. A buyer in a relationship journey is less price sensitive than a buyer in an analytical journey. A buyer in a relationship journey is less price sensitive. They're willing to pay more. They're going to value the fact that you have helped them understand why having a good car is so important. And then we have the last of the three journeys. This is called the trust journey. Trust journey, you're that new realtor, you want to get a new car, you go talk to your mentor. She says, yeah, you got to go talk to Bob at Lexus. You walk in to see Bob at Lexus. Bob goes, this is the car. Here's why you want it. Notice we're only talking about the will I. We're not talking about any competitive alternatives. And Bob is a really nice guy. You trust him. You say, okay, let's make a deal. And you never go talk to a competitive alternative. This is a trust journey. We feel like this is rare, but it's actually not. What's rare is that we learn to recognize it. Because when people are on a trust journey, they are not price sensitive. Remember when we were going through that will I part, we said people who are making a will I decision are not, that decision is not being driven by price. Can we recognize when buyers are making a will I decision? And so there are probably lots of ways that we could recognize them, or lots of ways that buyers will come to us with a will I decision. For example, we just went through the example of you got a recommendation to go see Bob at Lexus. Yeah, I trust Bob. She trusted Bob. Why wouldn't I trust Bob? Bob's going to do me a good deal. How about I bought a car from Bob at Lexus 3 years ago, loved him. He was super supportive. I'm going back to him because I know he's going to help me out again. So there are lots of possible ways. What we want to do is always assume our buyer is on a trust journey until we know otherwise. And what that really means is when a buyer comes to us, we are talking about the value of solving their problem, the value of buying a product like ours, not ours versus a competitor's. If you want to know that if there's a competitor involved or not, the last thing you want to do is ask, who are we competing with? Who else are you looking at? Not the question we want to ask. Here's the question you want to ask. If you don't buy from me, what are you going to do? The implication is there's no alternative. And maybe there is an alternative. Maybe they will say, yeah, I'm going to go do this. Great, we now know we need to switch our thinking and the information we're sharing from will I to which one. Carol and I, we go to the Reno Rodeo. I don't know, not every year, but every other year or something like that. And several years ago, we were at the Reno Rodeo. They have these pavilions where they're selling stuff to consumers. And I smoke meats. I had this Cook Shack smoker. Didn't really like it that much. It didn't create a nice, beautiful smoke ring on the meat. The temperature didn't stay stable. Wasn't in the market to buy a smoker. We're walking through the Reno Rodeo, and there's a beautiful setup of this guy's doing a pellet-driven smoker. Now, I'd never heard of a pellet-driven smoker before, but it essentially is creating heat out of burning those little wood pellets that you get. And the guy that I'm talking to, he says, "Oh, this is an amazing thing. It's going to make that beautiful smoke ring. It holds that temperature super tight. It's a beautiful thing." And I was interested. This was exciting. I'm like, I could use something like this. And this is a will-I decision, right? Am I going to buy this thing or not? And then he said the worst thing he could possibly say. He said, "This is just as good as a Traeger, only much less expensive." That's what I said. What's a Traeger? So I said, "Let me think about it. I'll get back to you." And of course, I go home and Google Traeger, and I found out they invented them, and it's like the world's leader. And so I bought a Traeger. But the whole point is, we were in a will-I conversation until he told me there was competition. And so let's do a little mini exercise. What I want you to do is, everybody by themselves, you've got a whole 60 seconds to do this. I want you to think about anybody who purchased something from you and didn't think about a competitor, didn't even consider a competitor. The question was, who's going to share with the room? And Marilyn is going to share a will-I with the room.
I have a client who I've just established a trusting relationship with, and their convention is now in 2022 in September, and it's not even a question that I will keynote their conference. They just know they will. And the Resorts World is going to be the location, and they came for a site visit, even though Resorts World wasn't even finished at the time. And they invited me to go to dinner with the executive sales guy. And I mean, it was just great, just because we don't have a contract, but they just know, of course, we're going to have you keynote our conference.
And why is that?
I think it's because they love me.
They've had you before.
They've had me in breakout sessions before, but because of the relationship we established and what I was willing to do during COVID and the connection that we continue to make, they know they're going to get a good product when their convention comes around in 2022.
Nice. So they just trust you. That's
Trust
nice.
is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love them too.
Trisha.
In January, I believe it was 2017, I got an email from an AOL address. What would you charge to coach 9 executives for a TED Talk, MC it, give a TED Talk yourself, and we want it in 4 or 5 weeks? And I thought, this is an unrealistic time frame, and I'm not competing if they're talking to 5 other coaches, because by the time they make up their mind, there's no time. So I said, who else are you considering? And the email came back, "Oh, we're not considering anybody else. I told them they need you." And I learned the lesson. If it's unrealistic, if it's an email that isn't a business email that you don't recognize, you follow up anyway. Because ever since that date, not only has it been one of my best clients for multiple events, she always comes to me to recommend other speakers, Jeff, and I believe we might be doing something in January again for them. So that was it. It turns out she had been a district governor of a Toastmaster conference I'd spoken at 3 or 4 years before that. And when they first called, I said no. They waited 2 years, came back again. So once in a while, you never know how they remember.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you knew that it was a will I. Hopefully you charged a really big number. Good answer. Good answer. Yes. Stormy.
Let's see, 2 months ago, I had a group that's made a gazillion dollars in the cryptocurrency space, and they wanted to, or not wanted to, but they've started an education platform. And they approached me to help them out with their marketing because they know absolutely nothing about marketing. And I was their executive vice, or the vice president of the organization, is someone who used to be a mentor of mine 30 years ago. We haven't talked, we haven't communicated in 30 years, but he's been following me online, and he says, listen, if we're going to do this, if we're going to turn this into an educational platform, the only person we're going to use is Stormy. Now, the interesting thing is very similar to Patricia. I'm like, no, I'm busy. And they kept coming back to the table. We want to give you more. We want to give you more. And I've made more money from their advice than I have from, the payment. So this is pretty darn cool. They're just telling me what to do. But pretty interesting scenario because of trust. There was no one else was involved in the conversations. They didn't consider anyone else because the vice president of the organization was so compelling to the rest of the group that I am the only option that they can go with. That's what happened. That just happened a few months ago.
Nice. Thank you. Go ahead, Katrina. Last one, and then I got to wrap it up.
So I did a work with a group of alpha males, and I worked with the HR. And the HR at one point, she cracked because they're tough. And she cried and everything. But we stayed good friends, and I helped her through it. And 10 years later, I get a call. Here I am in the US, but I get a call from the CEO and says, look, I want to work with you. Okay. Yeah, but I'm in the States and not in Europe. I'm coming though. So he hired me right away. And what was nice is that having this good relationship with this person, even though it was really difficult for her, but helping her through, she remembered 10 years later, and he trusted her. And so I got the mandate.
Nice. And so what we want to take away from these and more stories is, how can we recognize that we're the only one? How can we recognize that someone's not comparing us to an alternative, to a competitive alternative? There are lots of different situations where this could happen. We talked already about referrals, or we talked about the fact that it's previous history. It could be the way we're doing distribution. Right? Think about popcorn at the movie theater. Right? That's really a distribution issue. It's a situational thing that happens. And so maybe we can find those situations where we're the only ones. It could be our products. It could be that we are the only people who have the world's best persona. It could be that we're the only people who are recognized as this. And that makes us so unique that if somebody wants to buy, they're going to buy from us. There's no choice. And when I think of that, I think of the Apple iPhone. If you're using an iPhone today, I would bet that you might be thinking to yourself, am I going to upgrade to the new iPhone or not? But what you're not thinking is, am I going to upgrade to the new iPhone or switch to Android? Right? You are making a will-I decision to Apple's next product. So could we create products that are so unique that if you want to buy something like what we offer, you have no place to go other than us? When we can recognize that, then we know we're in a will-I situation. We know we have a will-I product. I'm gonna take a minute and go through 2 quick slides for when I interpret value for speakers. There's a couple of thoughts here that you might want to internalize or interpret. When should you raise prices? Well, I think you should raise prices when your calendar's almost full, because what people are telling you is they value you at the price that you are at, so you have room to go up. Let's consider that. And secondly, you should raise prices if you rarely lose a deal. If you never lose a deal, you are not priced high enough. You should be losing at least 10% of your deals, but probably 20, 30% of your deals you should be losing based on price. Some other value tips, please present price confidently. You guys saw the video, or at least you were sent the video on This Is a Fork. Watch that video if you can. When you say your price, it's just like a sentence. I charge $10,000. It isn't, I charge $10,000. Do you need a discount? So just believe in your own value. And when you talk to buyers, talk about their value. Talk about customer value. The second most profitable pricing decision any company can make is to adopt price segmentation. Price segmentation simply means charge different prices to different buyers based on their willingness to pay. I know this goes against this thing called fee integrity, and I'll talk about that when we get to the end of this section. But I teach this to companies all the time. We see this all the time. Last time you got on an airplane, do you think the person sitting beside you, if they're not related, paid the same price as you did for that airplane seats? This happens everywhere. There's no reason it can't happen in our industry. And if you remember, I said earlier today, let's put ourselves in the shoes of our buyers. So here's this dude looking over the skyscraper, and he's got some thoughts going through his mind. But do you think those are the same thoughts as this person? Or do you have the same thoughts as this person? Or the same thoughts as these people? People value your product differently. People think different things. If we can put ourselves in the shoes of our buyers and understand what they're truly thinking, how much they're truly willing to pay, we can charge different customers different prices. I'm about to give you, oh, this is what we're really talking about. You want to charge rich people $10 and everybody else $5. Let's gouge the rich. In truth, we're going to go through 3 techniques that you can use to do exactly this. One is, what are some characteristics of our customers that we can learn that'll tell us how much they're willing to pay? What's some information I can learn at the time of the transaction, which will help me indicate or understand my customer's willingness to pay? And last, what are some behaviors that I could force my customers to exhibit to demonstrate their willingness to pay or their price sensitivity? Let's jump in with customer characteristics. We're going to use the movie theater example, and it's kind of hard to see on our projector, but you guys get the idea. Customer characteristics. We, as normal adults, we go into the movies for $11. However, if you're over 62, you can get in for 10. If you're under 12, you get in for 8. All we're saying is, tell me something we understand about our customers and we understand about their willingness to pay. We can charge them different prices. There's many examples of this. We might charge based on geography. When we're selling products, people in Asia tend to be way more price sensitive than people in the US or Europe. We might charge based on, well, here we saw age, location, where do you live? Do you know that if you live in Florida, you get into Disney World cheaper than the rest of us get into Disney World? Right? They give you a discount just because of where you live. Tell me something about the customer and I'll understand their willingness to pay, and I can charge them different prices. What about the industry that somebody is in? Some industries have a real high willingness to pay. Some industries are super price sensitive. Can we charge them different prices based on that industry, based on what we know about that industry? So if we think about customer characteristics for speakers, what I was thinking is I just brainstormed some of these. Nonprofits are a no-brainer. Right? We probably charge lower prices for nonprofits because they don't have any money to pay us if we want to do that. A lot of speakers do this. I'm going to charge less for local gigs than I will for gigs I have to travel for. But what I want you to think about is that has to do with our willingness to accept, not their willingness to pay. When I think about price segmentation, I think about what's my customer's willingness to pay. So if I were selling a gig in my city, I would start at normal price. And then if they are super price sensitive, I'd be more willing to negotiate just because I'm willing to do it because I don't have to travel. But that's not a willingness to pay thing. That's a willingness to accept issue. International gigs, if they're willing to pay you to fly international, I'm guessing they have more money to pay your fees too. We could probably charge higher fees because we have to travel internationally. When you think about this, think about how would you create a separate price list for these different orders? You don't have to publish it, but in your own mind, how would I create a separate price list for these types of customers? The second technique we want to talk about is transaction information. What can we learn at the time of the transaction that might help me understand how much my customer or buyer is willing to pay? In the movie theater example, we can go at night for $11. We can go in the afternoon for $9, or we can go in the morning for $6. What can I learn at the time of the transaction that helps me understand my customer's willingness to pay? As I brainstormed this for speakers, venue jumped to mind. I don't know if I've ever seen this, but I can imagine if someone's trying to book me in the local Best Western, they're more price sensitive than someone who's booking me at the Wynn, right? So just by understanding the venue, I understand a better idea of what their willingness to pay is. Other things, who have they hired in the past? Do I know how much they charge, how much they're getting paid, how many attendees are going to be at the event? If it's a huge event, they probably have a higher willingness to pay. How much are they charging for the event? If they're charging for attendees to show up. Who are the attendees, right? Are they consumers at a home show, or are they doctors sitting in the room? These are all indicators to us of what our market might be willing to pay. And we could be thinking, how much could we charge? And when I think about this transaction, I think it really is going to advise our proposals and our negotiations. If we're going to give somebody a proposal, we're thinking along the lines of, how big is it going to be? How big is the number going to be? The last of our three techniques are behaviors. Behaviors are, can we put a hurdle in someone's way that says, jump this to prove to me that you're price sensitive? Everybody asks for a discount, right? Everybody wants a discount. Are you really willing to work for a discount? What are you willing to do? In our movie theater example, we could use coupons. And anybody in here use coupons? Just curious. Coupons. Yeah. All the time? Yeah, okay. Oh. Nice. Yeah. So well. Yeah. So if you're using a coupon, Marilyn, let me tell you what you're doing. You are trading a piece of your life for a better price, because you have to find the coupon, clip it out, store it, make sure you go to the right place, pick out the right item, remember to get the coupon, get it out at the cash register, go through the hassle of cashing it in. You are trading life for money. Now, by the way, that's not a bad thing. We all do that. It's called a job. But if you think about it, what a coupon really does is it says, prove to me you're price sensitive. Prove to me you wanted a discount, and you're willing to go through the effort to get a better price. It's not good or bad, right or wrong. It's just what it is. In the world of speakers, how can we do what? We're having some flashing problems, so I'm checking the input. Okay, except I don't know what the slide says. I wrote these last night. Come on. I'll come over here. Okay, so what are some so what about payment up front? Could we ask for the payment when they book us? And that's someone who's saying, look, I'm really price sensitive. Okay, yeah, I get it. We'll give you a better price if you give it to us up front. How about booking far in advance? Right, are you willing to book me for next year already? If you're really price sensitive, can I get the rights to the video? Right, full-fledged rights. When I think about these, are you clicking something or mine, Guy? Okay. So when I think about these, I actually think of these as gives and gets in my negotiations. What is it that if someone asks me for a lower price, I might ask them for, or I might even propose it up front if I know that they're price sensitive and say, look, I'd be willing to give you a better price in the following case. Are you willing to jump this hurdle for me? So what I want to do real quickly is a mini exercise. I want you to write down right now in front of you, if you've got a piece of paper, I want you to write down 3 customers who bought the same thing from you. 3 customers who essentially bought the same thing from me. I was eavesdropping, listening to Darren, so Darren's going to give us an example. Mike Runner, Mike.
Look, you got one laugh.
Okay.
You got
We'll
one
give-
laugh. Okay, it was a big one.
Can we all give Darren
All right.
some attention, please?
Attention, please. Short, specific questions. All right. So the example that I thought of is I just held a 3-day event. And the 3-day event was with Ed, mastering virtual. So Ed Tate, who's online there. I was just thinking of Lisa, who was one of our attendees, John Hale, who was one of our VIPs at our event, who did pay more, and then Andy Newman, who is in the UK and came to our event. He's been to new events. Lisa is brand new and just found out about us a week ago. And she's desperately trying to figure out her message. She's on a mission. She knows this is what she wants to do. So I know she would pay more. John Hale has been to many of our events. How you doing? Sorry, camera. John Hale has been to many of our events, and he has been a VIP at all of them. And he even said during the event, I get so much more when I get that personal attention. But Ed, he just hired Ford to build his website. So I know he's got the budget, but he's also in the position where this matters to him. He needed exactly what we're working on and what we're going to help him with. So he would pay more. Andy is in a different place. So I see it as people are in a different place in their career. So the importance and the budget matter to them. I don't know if I'm giving you a good example.
Perfect.
Well, he's not perfect, but. No, but that's the exact example. He's investing. He knows he needs help in the area that you can help him in, because we don't teach that. And engagement is something he's new to and not as comfortable with. So
The key to this conversation and what you want to take away from this is you listed 3 customers. You said this one's got the highest willingness to pay. You said, why would they pay more? Now, could you figure out how to systematically adjust your pricing so when people that look like John Hale come in, they automatically get put at this level where they're paying us more money? And when people who look like Lisa, who, although you said she would have paid more, who look like someone who's just struggling to get into the category, how do they pay this much? We want to be thinking about what's different about our different customers. And that's what's going to inform us as we figure out which of the 3 techniques we're going to use for price segmentation, if we can get away with any of them. Yeah, so I get this question a lot, especially in business, and it's something that rarely happens. Oh, yeah. So the question was, what happens if one client who's paying more finds out someone else is paying less? It turns out, first off, this almost never happens. If it truly happens in your industry a lot, then you might want to be more careful with it. But as a general rule, we don't share how much we paid for something. Somebody else doesn't know what you paid for anything. So how would they know that you paid more or that you paid less? And if for some reason it did happen, so let's say that I had 2 different clients and one client paid a couple $1,000s less for something, the answer is really simple. Well, they bought something different. They bought it when it was on sale. They bought it when I needed the business. They bought it on a Tuesday when I had a Tuesday sale going. There's always a reason that we have different prices. Some quick segmentation tips for speakers that I brainstormed last night in sleep. Fee integrity is for, Marilyn's gonna hate me. Fee integrity is for emerging speakers. The reason it's for emerging speakers is because emerging speakers don't have the confidence to negotiate their prices. Pick a price, say yes or no, and that's it. Do not negotiate until you get the confidence that says, yes, I'm really worth something. Fee integrity is for people selling through speakers bureaus. Anytime a product is sold through a distribution channel, you want to make sure the manufacturer is not undercutting your distribution channel. If you are selling through a speaker's bureau, you are selling it at the exact same price your bureau is selling it at, period. Besides that, besides that, fee integrity is less than optimally profitable. May I suggest you think really hard about how you're going to do your own negotiations. So segmentation tips for speakers. What are you going to do when they want to negotiate? A couple quick hints. Be willing to walk away. The strongest confidence in the world is just saying, look, I'm okay if I don't get that piece of business. Doesn't matter to me. And you would be shocked at how many people will pay your full fare. You'll be shocked. Gives and gets. Whenever we negotiate something, we want a list of things that we're going to get in exchange for a lower price. We never give a discount without getting something in return. If you do that, if you just say, look, I'm going to lower my price from 10,000 to 8,000, then you really weren't worth 10,000. You were asking them for something that they shouldn't have been paying in the first place. But if you say, look, if I could do 8,000, but you need to do this, this, and this for me, now I'm at least demonstrating that I keep my value. I understand value. Patience, great rule in negotiations. Patience wins, patience wins, patience wins. If you want to close the deal today, you are not patient, you will not win. But if you want to close the deal today, you're going to end up giving away too big of discounts. Offer a tiny, tiny discount and wait a few days for them to come back. Patience wins. And then finally, use your product portfolio. And this is up here mostly because we're going to launch into the third of the three huge pricing techniques that we can use to capture more of the value we're delivering to our marketplace. And that is by creating a product portfolio. Back in our movie theater example products, we can go see the movies as normal people for 11 bucks. We can go see a 3D version for an extra $5. Go see an IMAX version for an extra $6. 3D IMAX for an extra $7. If you think about it, it's really the same thing, right? We're all going to see the movie, we're going to get the story, we're going to walk out, but it's a slightly different experience. We can adjust the product so that people who are willing to pay us more do pay us more. Think about first class seats versus coach seats in an airplane. Right? We're all going from point A to point B. Some people are doing it more comfortably than others, right? And so what can we do in terms of a product portfolio? How do we think about this? One of the best examples is create different versions of our products for different market segments. One company that I had a chance to work for was called Lockbox. Lockbox was a company that did secure data transmission and storage based out of Australia. And they essentially sold their product to three different market segments. They sold it to bankers, to lawyers, and to accountants. That top row talks about the willingness to pay. So we see the bankers were willing to pay the most because they didn't want to make it look like they were outsourcing their security to someone else. Lawyers were willing to pay the second most, and accountants are cheap, so they didn't want to pay anything. But then you look at some of the features that are available in Lockbox. And so they could have a customizable homepage. Well, who cares about a customizable homepage? Turns out bankers cared a lot because they didn't want it to look like they were outsourcing security. Nobody else really cared. What about remote storage? Remote storage means we're going to store your data in a location in a country other than the sender or the receiver. In other words, it can't be subpoenaed. Who cares? Right? Lawyers. And so you could create, in fact, we did, create three different products. Lockbox for bankers, which had a customizable homepage. Didn't have remote storage. Lockbox for lawyers had remote storage, didn't have a customizable homepage. Lockbox for cheapskates didn't have either. But the key is, can I create a product that's just for that market segment? A fabulous rule for us then, consider versions for market segments when there's a large disparity in willingness to pay. If you could think across your customer base right now and say, here's a market segment of people who have the highest willingness to pay. they would pay me more than anybody else. Could you create a product that's targeting people just like that and call it Lockbox for Bankers? Let's say that we're doing speaking, and we want to talk to the financial planner marketplace. This is probably a market that pays us a lot of money. Excellent. I've got leadership for financial planners. By the way, I also do leadership, but I have leadership for financial planners. If you're a financial planner, which one are you going to buy? Leadership for financial planners. Maybe the exact same content with different stories. Can you create a product for the market segment who's willing to pay us more? The second key portfolio thing that we can do is create good, better, best product. This typically works best at a market segment, but in some cases we can make it work across market segments. When we think of good, better, best, you guys all have some kind of phone. When you made your phone decision, you bought either the one with the least amount of memory, the one with the middle amount of memory, or the one with the most amount of memory. I won't embarrass you by having you raise your hand, but just think about which one you bought right now. I can pretty much tell you bought the one in the middle, but that's okay. I'll tell you why in just a second. When people make a decision between these three options, here's how they decide. If they're an expert and they know exactly what they need, that's what they buy. Almost nobody is an expert. If you're scraping to get into the product category, so this is a big part of your budget, you buy good. If it's a tiny piece of your budget, you want to make sure the quality is going to be amazing, you buy best. Everybody else buys the one in the middle. And the reason we buy the one in the middle is because we don't want to make a mistake. We think if we buy the cheap one, it might not be good enough, and oh, I hate myself. We buy the expensive one, I wasted money, it was too expensive. We buy the one in the middle because we don't have to worry about making a mistake. This is true with your buyers too. They buy the one in the middle. Once we do this, now we can start playing with pricing a little bit, because what ends up happening is fantastic story where there was a study with a couple different beers, the bargain beer for $1.80, the premium beer for $2.50. And what happens when you add a third beer to the story, right? So 20% of the people were buying bargain, 80% were buying premium. When we add a third beer, we're going to add the super premium beer for $3.40. What happens? Fewer people buy the cheapest one. Some people go up and buy the really expensive one. Most people buy the one in the middle. If you add a more expensive product to your product line, more people will buy the one in the middle. What happens when we add one to the bottom? What happens when we add one to the bottom? Here we're going to add the super bargain beer for $1.60. Nobody buys the super bargain beer. But where we used to only have 20% buying the low end, the cheap beer, now 80% are buying the bargain beer. Because they're buying the one in the middle. Go ahead, guy.
A perfect example of that is Sonoma Home is a high-end appliance and things for your kitchen. And a few years ago, they were getting ready to discontinue one of their bread maker models, $250, $300 range, because it wasn't selling enough. So they thought, let's go ahead and create a really expensive one and see if we can people get that perceived value to start going up. So they put a new bread maker on for $500. They were getting ready to get rid of the middle one. When they introduced the new one, the sales of the middle one shot up so much that they continued to develop that or continued to sell it. And it became one of their best selling products because of that perceived value of, ooh, this is awesome now. They didn't change anything except we have a new, more expensive one.
Yep. This absolutely works. This is the way people make decisions. Another great rule is a confused mind doesn't purchase. If you have 20 products on your price list and you're asking people to choose between 20 products, it's easy for them not to choose. It is tough to sell a product. When you understand their problem and their situation, and you offer them 3 options, good, better, best, it's actually really easy for them to choose. And by the way, they're going to choose the one in the middle most of the time. The last thing I want to talk about with portfolios is this thing called compliments. This is one of my favorite McDonald's boards ever. I noticed the price of a double cheeseburger up here is $1. Notice the price of a cheeseburger is $1.09. Wow, that seems stupid. But it turns out, think about what's really going on here. What's really going on is, if you're a person who normally buys a cheeseburger at McDonald's, you walk into McDonald's and you walk right up to the counter and you say, "May I please have a cheeseburger?" And they give you a cheeseburger. What you don't do is look up at the board and say, "I wonder if a double cheeseburger is less expensive today." You just buy a cheeseburger. However, imagine you're driving on the road in front of McDonald's and they got that big sign up front that says double cheeseburger 99 cents. Like, ooh, that sounds like a great deal. I think I'm going to go get one. You pull in, and of course, when you get your 99-cent cheeseburger, McDonald's is losing money on every 99-cent double cheeseburger they sell. Yet when you buy your $1.69 soda, that costs them 15 cents. What else can we add to our repertoire that we can get people to buy from us because they're already in our ecosystem? They're already one of our customers. Because if you think about fries or soda at McDonald's, these are will-I decisions. You're not going to go to McDonald's and buy a double cheeseburger and then go across the street to Burger King to get a Coke. You're buying your Coke at McDonald's. So we know that people making that will-I decision are much less price sensitive. So when I think about tips for portfolios for speakers, number 1 tip, every time you do a proposal, if you're going to take the time to create a proposal, I recommend you create good, better, best proposals. And the way I always think of it is I usually make my good proposal less than what they asked for and very price competitive. I make my good proposal pretty much exactly what they wanted and a good profit margin. It's the price I'm comfortable winning at. And then my best proposal is ridiculously expensive because it shows off the capabilities of what we can deliver. And they can aspire to these someday in the future. Oh, I really want someone like that someday. When we think about what complements we can build, what add-ons we can build, we have things like books and coaching and consulting and weekly updates, and there's tons and tons of things that we could do that we could add to our repertoire. We don't put it on our webpage. We don't sell it up front. We don't want to confuse our customers. But once we've got them in our ecosystem, now these are add-ons that we can offer. Because if they already trust us and love us, they're not going to go somewhere else to buy these things. They're going to get them from us. So I'm almost out of time, but let me give you one last example of all 3 of these pricing techniques that we talked about. In 2010, I had the opportunity to fly to Vegas. I don't live here, and I didn't at the time either. Flew to Vegas for a meeting of the Professional Pricing Society, right? And of course, this is going to be exciting. And I get off at McCarran Airport. I get into a taxi. Taxi cab driver says, you want to take the freeway or the back roads? And at least at the time, it was about the same distance, same timing. And so I just said, you choose, I don't care. So we ended up taking the back roads. And we were over on Koval Street, stopped. I'm sitting in the back seat watching that meter tick up 20 cents at a time. And eventually I asked the taxi cab driver, so why are we stopped? He goes, there's road construction up ahead. Shouldn't he have known there was road construction up ahead? So when I finally realized that, I said, okay, just pull over. I'm going to get out. I paid him my $20. I grabbed my bag. I'm walking. I got a couple miles. I think I'm staying at Harris this week. So I'm pulling my bag and I get to the next corner. And there's a lady standing there, long dark hair, puffy sweater, big bag. We just start chatting as we're walking towards the strip. I told her about my taxi cab. She told me how her friend had abandoned her up the street, and we get just a couple of blocks down, and I asked her, "So what do you do?" And she stopped and looked at me and said, "Anything you want." Now, I'm an Ohio boy, right? So my jaw hit the ground. And when I finally recovered, I am not joking, these were the next words out of my mouth. "I'm a pricing expert. Can I ask you some questions?" So I asked, "How much do you charge?" And she goes, $500. I was like, "Really? Do you ever take less?" She says, "No, I don't. But if someone's only willing to pay less, I've got some people I can refer them to. So we can afford that." And so that happens to be pricing lesson number one. Know your value, especially relative to your competition. So then I said, "Do you ever charge more?" She goes, "Oh, absolutely. Some guy's got an expensive watch, nice shoes on. I'm starting at $800. That's pricing lesson number two. Price segmentation. Use price segmentation. So then we're walking along the strip, and she takes a phone call while we're walking. And she's obviously talking to somebody who she had provided services for before. And she was trying to she was trying to convince this individual that she and a friend of hers could both provide services for him. And when she hung up, I said, "So how much is it if you and a friend provide services?" And she goes, "Oh, that starts at $2,000. And so that happens to be pricing lesson number three, create a product portfolio. So now we're walking down the strip, and we're just about to my hotel, and she's been so open and honest and talking about things that I'm embarrassed to ask questions about. But then I ask her the final question. I go, "Look, I'm so sorry. If you don't want to answer this, you don't have to. But how much did you make last year?" And she said, "I worked almost every day, and I made a little over $1 million." Now, you may not approve of what she does for a living, but may I suggest if you want to make $1 million, you learn these three pricing lessons. Know your value. Thank you, Darren. That's it.